Hello, everyone. This is Mr. Strahota coming to you with our next lesson on elections. And what we're going to start with is voting and elections. And the first part of the year, we talked a lot about the history of our government system getting established and how it got set up in the first place. And now we're hopefully going to get to things that you're going to find super relevant both in your life and in regards to when you're watching the news or you see things on social media in regards to elections. And hopefully, this will help give you some background on these items. And once you turn 18, hopefully start voting in both your local and national elections. So, we're going to start with voting and elections. So, this is a pretty cool little illustration, visualization of the different voting preferences that the United States had in each presidential election since our very first one. And you can see down here the key with different colors representing different political parties. And you can see that based off of time periods, sometimes it switches from one color to another. And if you can also notice is that obviously as we get closer to present day 2020, obviously Republican and Democratic candidates are the two main political parties. Now, early on in the 1800s, there was a couple different colors, but again, eventually it gets dominated by red and blue. Now, there is a little bit of yellow, which is the Progressive Party, but again, anytime beyond basically the 1970s, it's all red or blue. So if you're just curious with how different votings went, this is a cool visualization for that. Visualization. It's a tough word. The election process. So, in the United States, the election process occurs in two steps. So, the first one being a nomination, so in which the field of candidates is narrowed down. So, essentially, come the 2020 presidential election in November, your choices are going to be either President Donald Trump or most likely Joe Biden, who is essentially the last man standing in regards to the candidate for the Democratic Party. And then the other is the general election. So this is the regularly scheduled election where voters make the final choice of office holder. So somebody gets nominated for a political party, and then in the general election, this is where people cast their votes on who they want to win the election. The nomination process. So you can see here, this is actually at the Iowa State Fair where they're casting votes for who they want to run for office, and this is prior to the 2016 presidential election. As you can see, Trump is right here. You can see some other Republican candidates, and basically whoever gets the most pieces of corn here essentially would win this primary, which is, again, a very interesting way to look at it. So there's three ways a candidate can be nominated. First of all, self-announcement. So that person says, I am running for office, and they announce their candidacy. And whenever a write-in candidate appears on the ballot, the self-announcement process has been used. The second is the caucus. So again, the Iowa caucus is the first one they have, and this is a meeting at which local members of a political party register their preference among candidates running for office. So again, this is people who are running in the same political party, and then they need to narrow that down to one candidate for the ballot. And then lastly, that convention. So this is considered more democratic than the caucus. A convention is where delegates are selected to represent the people's wishes. So basically, in the summer, actually, Milwaukee was supposed to host the Democratic National Convention, but that has been postponed. I don't know if it's been moved to a later date or if it's going virtual. I actually haven't seen the latest news on that, but that's where the Democratic Convention was supposed to actually take place in Milwaukee, but that got moved. But this is, again, essentially where the formal nomination takes place for the political party. So the direct primary. So there's different types of direct primaries, and I'll put them all up for you. You can see there's closed primaries, and this is where only declared party members can vote. Open primaries, where any qualified voter can take part. There's a runoff primary where if a required majority is not met, the two people with the most votes will run again. A nonpartisan primary means candidates are not identified by party labels. And lastly, a blanket primary, which is qualified voters can vote for any candidate regardless of party. Primaries in the U.S. based off of their color coding, this is how it breaks down in the United States. So Wisconsin being dark purple here, we are open private choice for primaries. Now you can see based off of different colors, it can vary. You can see Louisiana is the only one with an open election. You can see there's some open private choice like Wisconsin. There's some that are closed, unaffiliated voters permitted to vote. So again, you can just see basically all you need to take from this is it varies based off of each state in the United States. Petition. So candidates, before they can be put on the ballot, they need to gather a required number of voter signatures to be put on the ballot via a petition. So independent and minor party candidates are usually required by state law to be nominated by a petition, and this petition is often used at the local level as well to nominate for school posts and municipal offices. So essentially, you couldn't just announce via, let's say, Facebook that you're running for school board. All right, you could, but then you would need to go get signatures from a X amount of people to be able to be put on the ballot. And if you don't get enough signatures, you won't be put on the ballot. And if you're not put on the ballot, guess what? Nobody, unless you get a lot of support for write-in votes, most likely you're not going to get enough votes to win. So again, that petition is important in our democracy in regards to getting people on a ballot. Types of votes. This is where we're going to get into the difference between popular vote and electoral votes, especially when it comes to our presidential election. So a popular vote is simply the amount of votes cast directly for a individual or a constituent. So in 2016 presidential election, as you can see, Hillary Clinton got almost 3 million votes more than Donald Trump. And why did President Trump still win? Well, because of our electoral college. Because the popular vote within each state then decides the electoral votes. So what this is basically summarizing is in the really large cities, Hillary Clinton got a lot of support. However, in all of the states in a broad spectrum, Trump got enough votes to win enough states to win the electoral votes. So the electoral votes differ by state, and with each state having electoral votes equal to the number of representatives and senators, which we talked about prior to us leaving school. And Wisconsin has 8 U.S. senators and 8 U.S. House representative members and 2 state senators. So that equals 10. And the presidency is won by the candidate who gets the majority of the electoral votes, and they need to get at least 270 of the 538. So this is the breakdown from the 2016 presidential election. You can see President Trump got 306 electoral votes, whereas Hillary Clinton only got 232. So Hillary Clinton got a lot of votes in California. She got a lot of votes in New York, which are 2 of our higher populated states, and that's why she was able to get more popular votes. But as you can see, President Trump was able to get a broader spectrum of actual states to win for him, which led to him obviously winning the presidential election. One thing I will note quickly, as you see here, Maine is a blue and red stripes, and why that is because both Maine and Nebraska are the only 2 states in the United States that can cast their votes based off of who wins in their state district. So this one, Hillary Clinton and President Trump split, actually, because some of the regions voted for Trump, some of the regions voted for Clinton, and therefore the state was split, with some of the votes going to Hillary Clinton, some of the votes going to President Trump. Some people argue that we should use this system in all of our states because it would be a better representation of all of the people. But again, that's up for debate. Just really quickly, an example where in Wisconsin, let's say 50% of people voted for Hillary Clinton, 50% of people voted for President Trump. What that would mean then is out of the 10 electoral votes Wisconsin has, 5 of them would have gone to Hillary Clinton and 5 of them would have gone to President Trump. Something that's more equitable, but again, that's a whole different conversation and something that people still debate to this day if the Electoral College is the best presidential system or not. So we're going to learn the root word of where the word idiot came from. This comes from the Greek word idiotes, which means those who did not contribute to politics and the community. So next time you call somebody an idiot, you can at least have some history and background on where the word idiot came from. So voter turnout in the United States in 2016, there was 55%. 2014, there was 36%. That's an off-year election. An off-year election means there wasn't a presidential election. So in 2012, we had a presidential election. In 2016, we had a presidential election. So as you can see, more people turn out typically when there's presidential elections than when there's not. 55%, that's a little over half. So again, voter turnout isn't super high in the United States, which you can argue is a good or a bad thing. But hopefully, again, when you turn 18, you do use your you do your civic duty and you go and vote. So what are some of these reasons for not voting? So like, why did only 55% of people vote, leaving 45% who didn't vote? Well, there's some different issues. Some physically aren't able to, whether they're sick, out of town, too busy, at work, etc. Some don't trust our system and they feel their vote's not going to make a difference. So for example, if you live in California and you notice that California always votes Democrat or they always vote blue, if you're a Republican in California, you might say to yourself, it's not even worth my gas money to drive to the polling station to vote because all of the electoral votes are going to go to the Democratic candidate anyway. Again, I still think you should vote, but that's just my opinion. Non-voters, who do those people tend to be? They tend to be younger, under the age of 35, unmarried, lower education level, male, and rural. Again, that's not in every situation, but that's what the statistics show. And also low income, which again would somewhat make sense because, sometimes it takes a car or gas money to get to a polling station, and if you don't have a car, that can make it really difficult for you. So who can not vote? And this will be our last slide today. So anyone under the 18 years old. So once you turn 18, you're able to vote, but until that point, you are unable to. Specifics left to the states, but overseen by the federal government. And what that's referring to is, for example, if you're a convicted felon. So in Wisconsin, if you are a convicted felon, your vote is restored after your term of incarceration, parole or probation, which takes place in 20 states. In these red states, which there's 10 of them, you may lose your vote permanently if you're a convicted felon. And then you can see based off of the different colors how that breakdown works. So that is lesson 1 on our next unit dealing with voting. And hopefully you learned some information from this. And the worst case scenario, you know where the word idiot came from. So as always, if you have any questions, please reach out to me and let me know. Otherwise, hope you're staying healthy and safe. And until next time, have a great rest of your day.